She paused, looking out at the sea of faces before her. The Void Horde sought to impose uniformity, to strip us of our individuality. But it was our differences, our unique perspectives and abilities that allowed us to triumph. As we move forward, let us remember this lesson. Let us cherish our diversity, our creativity, our boundless capacity for growth and change. For it is these qualities that truly make us strong. As applause filled the chamber, Sarah's gaze found her crew, Jack, Kira, Avalon, Grax, and all the others who had stood with her through impossible odds. In their eyes, she saw reflected the same emotion that filled her heart. Pride, yes, but also a burning determination. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. Whatever challenges the future might hold, they would face them together. The stars beckoned, full of mystery and promise. Humanity had proven its worth among the cosmos. Now, united with their new allies, they stood ready to explore, to learn to grow. The next chapter in their grand adventure was just beginning. For when heroes were needed, humanity had stepped up, and in doing so, they had not only saved the galaxy, but had also forged a brighter future for all sentient beings. The legacy of the Phantom and its crew would echo through the ages, a testament to the indomitable spirit of those who dared to reach for the stars. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces before her. The Void Horde sought to impose uniformity, to strip us of our individuality. But it was our differences, our unique perspectives and abilities that allowed us to triumph. As we move forward, let us remember this lesson. Let us cherish our diversity, our creativity, our boundless capacity for growth and change. For it is these qualities that truly make us strong. The hangar bay of the Galactic Council's space station hummed with activity as final preparations were made for the mission. Captain Sarah Chen stood before a sleek obsidian black ship, its hull adorned with experimental stealth technology that seemed to drink in the light around it. "She's a beauty," Commander Jack Morrison remarked, coming to stand beside Sarah. "The Phantom, they're calling her. Top minds from a dozen species worked on her design." Sarah nodded, her eyes tracing the ship's elegant lines. "Let's hope she lives up to her name. We'll need every advantage we can get once we cross into Horde territory." As they spoke, a diverse team of aliens approached, each carrying specialized equipment. An avian being with iridescent feathers stepped forward, introducing herself as Dr. Avalon. "Captain, Commander, I'm the xenobiologist assigned to your mission. My team has prepared a suite of sensors to gather data on the Horde's biological makeup." Jack eyed the equipment skeptically. "That's all well and good, Doc, but what happens if we need to defend ourselves? I don't suppose those sensors double as weapons." A deep, rumbling laugh answered him. A massive, rocky-skinned alien lumbered forward, dwarfing even Jack's impressive frame. "That's where I come in, human. I am Grax, weapons specialist. Trust me, this ship has teeth." Sarah smiled, feeling a spark of hope for the first time in months. "Glad to have you both on board. Let's get everything loaded up. We launch in 2 hours." As the team busied themselves with final preparations, Ambassador Zixara approached, her scales shimmering with barely contained anxiety. "Captain Chen, a word." Sarah followed the ambassador to a quiet corner of the hangar, Zixara's multifaceted eyes fixed on her intently. "I must ask one last time, are you certain about this course of action? The data you've collected is compelling, but the risk is necessary." Sarah finished firmly. "Ambassador, every moment we delay, more worlds fall to the Horde. We have to take this chance." Zixara was silent for a long moment, then reached out and grasped Sarah's hand in a gesture she recognized as deeply significant for the ambassador's species. "Then go with the blessings of the Council and all the peoples of the galaxy. Your courage will not be forgotten." 2 hours later, the Phantom slipped out of the space station's docking bay, its stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible against the backdrop of stars. On the bridge, Sarah settled into the captain's chair, her hands dancing over the controls with practiced ease. All systems operational, reported Lieutenant Kira, a young human prodigy in astrogation. Stealth drive is functioning at optimal levels. Good, Sarah nodded. Plot a course for the edge of Horde territory. We'll make our approach through the Cerberus Nebula. Its radiation should provide additional cover. As the ship accelerated to faster-than-light speeds, Jack joined Sarah on the bridge, his weathered face set in grim determination. So, what's our play once we reach Horde space? We can't exactly knock on their front door. Sarah pulled up a holographic display of their target area. We'll start by observing from a distance, gathering as much data as we can without engaging. Dr. Avalon's sensors should give us insight into their biological processes. Once we have a better understanding of their physiology, we can look for ways to disrupt it. Jack frowned, studying the display. And if we're detected, then we improvise, Sarah said with a wry smile. I didn't pick you for this mission just for your charming personality, Commander. I know your record. You're the best there is when it comes to thinking on your feet. Jack chuckled, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. Flattery will get you everywhere, Captain, but let's hope it doesn't come to that. I've got a feeling we're going to need every trick in the book to pull this off. For 3 days, the Phantom cruised through the swirling gases of the Cerberus Nebula, its crew working tirelessly to prepare for the challenges ahead. Dr. Avalon ran simulations on her biological sensors, while Grax fine-tuned the ship's weapon systems. Sarah spent hours poring over the latest intelligence reports, searching for any additional insight into the Horde's behavior. On the 4th day, as they approached the edge of the nebula, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Lieutenant Kira's voice came over the intercom, tight with tension. Captain to the bridge immediately. We've got company. Sarah raced to her station, heart pounding. On the main view screen, a terrifying sight greeted her. A massive Horde vessel had appeared seemingly out of nowhere, its biomechanical form writhing with tendrils and pulsing with sickly green energy. How did they detect us? Jack demanded, bursting onto the bridge. Unknown, sir, Kira replied, her fingers flying over her console. Our stealth systems are still fully operational. The bridge of the Phantom was eerily silent as the crew watched the Void Horde ship systematically devour the small planetoid. Captain Sarah Chen's eyes were fixed on the sensor readings, her mind racing to process the influx of new information. Dr. Avalon, she called out, breaking the tense silence. What are we looking at here? The avian xenobiologist's feathers ruffled with excitement as she analyzed the data. It's fascinating, Captain. The Horde vessel isn't just consuming the planetoid's resources, it's literally transforming them. See these energy signatures? They're reconfiguring matter at the molecular level. Commander Jack Morrison frowned, his battle-hardened instincts on high alert. That's all very interesting, Doc, but how does it help us stop them? Dr. Avalon's eyes gleamed. Don't you see? This process requires an enormous amount of energy. If we could disrupt it somehow, we might be able to cripple their ability to expand, Sarah finished, a spark of hope igniting in her chest. Good work, Doctor. Keep analyzing that data. I want to know every detail of this process. As the Phantom continued its covert observation, the crew worked tirelessly to unravel the mysteries of the Void Horde's biology. Hours stretched into days, with the humans and their alien allies pushing themselves to the limits of endurance. On the 5th day of their vigil, Lieutenant Kira's voice cut through the ship's comm system, tight with urgency. Captain, we've got a problem. The Horde ship is changing course. It's heading directly for the Andromeda colony. Sarah's blood ran cold. Andromeda was a fledgling human settlement, established just beyond the edge of Galactic Council space. It was home to thousands of colonists, including families with children. How long until they reached the colony? Sarah demanded, already moving towards the weapons station. At their current speed, less than 6 hours, Kira replied grimly. Jack met Sarah's eyes, understanding passing between them without a word. They both knew what had to be done. We can't let them reach Andromeda, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Prep the Phantom for combat. We're going to buy those colonists some time." As the crew scrambled to battle stations, Grax, the hulking weapons specialist, lumbered onto the bridge. "Captain, with all due respect, we're not equipped to take on the Horde ship head-on. It's suicide." Sarah nodded grimly. "You're right, Grax. That's why we're not going to fight fair. Dr. Avalon, what's the status on that disruptive energy pulse you're working on?" The xenobiologist's feathers flattened in concern. "It's still experimental, Captain. We haven't had time to test it properly." "Well, we're out of time," Sarah replied. "Load it into our main weapons array. We'll only get one shot at this." As the Phantom raced to intercept the Horde vessel, tension on the bridge reached a fever pitch. Sarah's fingers tightened on the arms of her chair, her mind racing through contingencies. "We'll approach from their blind spot," she instructed. "Kira, plot a course that keeps us in the shadow of that asteroid field. Jack, I want you on weapons. The moment we're in range, hit them with everything we've got." Her next hour was a masterclass in stealth maneuvering. Kira's expert piloting kept them hidden as they closed the distance, using the asteroid field for cover. Finally, they were in position. "We're in range, Captain," Jack reported, his finger hovering over the fire control. Sarah took a deep breath. Fire. A brilliant pulse of energy erupted from the Phantom, striking the Horde ship squarely in its midsection. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a soundless ripple that shook the very fabric of space, the massive vessel began to convulse. "Direct hit," Jack shouted. "Their systems are going haywire." On the view screen, the Horde ship writhed, its biomechanical components seeming to war with each other. Tendrils lashed out wildly, and strange, discordant energy patterns played across its surface. "It worked," Dr. Avalon breathed in awe. "We've disrupted their molecular reconfiguration process. They can't maintain cohesion." Sarah allowed herself a moment of elation before snapping back to the reality of their situation. "Great work, everyone. But we're not out of the woods yet. Kira, get us out of here before they..." Her words were cut off as the ship rocked violently. Alarms blared throughout the Phantom. "We've been hit," Grax rolled from the engineering station. "Port engine is down." Sarah gritted her teeth. "Evasive maneuvers. We need tow." Another blast rocked the ship, throwing Sarah from her chair. As she struggled to her feet, she saw Jack wrestling with the weapons controls, firing off defensive salvos. "Sarah," he called out, using her first name in the heat of the moment. "We can't take another hit like that. We need to do something drastic." As klaxons wailed and her crew fought to keep the Phantom in one piece, Sarah Chen faced the most difficult decision of her life. They had wounded the Horde ship, possibly saved the Andromeda colony, but at what cost? With their engines damaged, they couldn't outrun the enemy. Fighting was futile. But as she looked around at her brave crew, human and alien alike, Sarah knew she couldn't give up. Humanity had a saying, "Where there's life, there's hope." And as long as they drew breath, they would find a way to survive, to fight, to win. With newfound determination blazing in her eyes, Sarah Chen stood tall on the bridge of her wounded ship. "All right, people," she called out, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Let's show these Horde bastards what humanity is really made of. Brace for impact and prepare for emergency maneuvers. We're not done yet, not by a long shot." As the damaged Phantom faced off against the wounded but still formidable Horde vessel, the fate of not just the ship's crew, but potentially the entire galaxy hung in the balance. The next few moments would determine whether humanity's daring gambit would be remembered as a heroic last stand or the turning point in the war against the Void Horde. Alarms blared throughout the Phantom as the ship shuddered under another barrage from the wounded Horde vessel. On the bridge, Captain Sarah Chen's mind raced, searching for a way out of their seemingly impossible situation. "Status report," she barked, steadying herself against her command chair. Port engines still offline, Grax growled from the engineering station, his rocky fingers dancing over the controls. Shields at 30% and falling. We can't take much more of this, Captain. Commander Jack Morrison's voice cut through the chaos. Sarah, I've got an idea. It's crazy, but it might just work. Sarah met his eyes, seeing the determined glint she'd come to trust over their years of service together. I'm all ears, Jack. Crazy is all we've got left. Jack pointed to the tactical display. The Horde ship is still reeling from our disruptor blast. Its outer hull is destabilized. If we can get close enough, we might be able to slip inside through one of those ruptures. Dr. Avalon's feathers bristled with alarm. Inside the Horde ship. That's suicide. Maybe, Jack agreed grimly. But right now, it's looking like our only shot at survival. We can't outrun them, and we can't outgun them. But if we can get inside, Sarah's eyes widened as she grasped Jack's plan. We might be able to take them out from within. Kira, she called to her pilot. Can you get us in close? The young lieutenant's hands tightened on the controls. It'll be tight, Captain, but I can do it. All right, people, Sarah announced, her voice ringing with authority. This is it. Brace for close-quarters maneuvers. Grax, divert all remaining power to the forward shields. We're going in. The next few moments were a blur of motion and chaos. Kira's expert piloting sent the Phantom into a series of gut-wrenching evasive maneuvers, dodging the worst of the Horde ship's attacks. As they closed in, the true scale of their enemy became apparent. The biomechanical monstrosity dwarfed them, its writhing tendrils and pulsing energy conduits creating a nightmarish landscape. There, Jack shouted, pointing to a gaping wound in the Horde ship's hull. That's our entry point. Sarah gritted her teeth. Take us in, Kira. Nice and easy. With a final harrowing turn, the Phantom slipped through the rupture in the Horde ship's outer defenses. They found themselves in a cavernous space, surrounded by twisting organic structures and pulsing mechanical components. I can't believe that worked, Dr. Avalon breathed, her scientific curiosity warring with her fear. The Phantom limped through space, its hull scarred and systems barely holding together after the intense battle with the Void Horde ship. Inside, the mood was a mixture of exhaustion and elation. They had achieved the impossible, but the cost had been high. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the center of the bridge, her uniform singed and her face streaked with grime. She looked around at her battered crew, feeling a surge of pride. Status report, she called out, her voice hoarse from shouting orders during the fight. Commander Jack Morrison, sporting a nasty gash above his eye, responded first. We're running on fumes, Sarah. Life support is stable, but our engines are at 30% capacity at best. It's going to be a slow trip home. Dr. Avalon's feathers were ruffled and bent, but her eyes shone with excitement as she pored over her data. Captain, the information we've gathered is extraordinary. The Horde ship's destruction has given us unprecedented insight into their biology and technology. This could be the key to defeating them. Sarah nodded, a grim smile on her face. Good work, Doctor. That data is our lifeline. Kira, what's our ETA to the nearest friendly outpost? The young lieutenant's fingers danced over her console. At our current speed, about 72 hours to the Arcturus station, Captain. It's the closest Galactic Council facility. Make it happen, Sarah ordered, and keep an eye out for any Horde activity. I doubt they'll take the loss of one of their ships lying down. As the Phantom crawled through space, the crew worked tirelessly to repair what they could. Grax and his engineering team performed miracles, coaxing a little more power from their strained systems. Dr. Avalon and her science team analyzed every scrap of data they had collected, searching for weaknesses they could exploit in future engagements. Sarah spent the time drafting her report to the Galactic Council. The magnitude of what they had accomplished was still sinking in. They had proven that the Void Horde wasn't invincible. There was hope. On the second day of their journey, Jack found Sarah in her quarters, poring over tactical displays. You should get some rest, he said, concern evident in his voice. Sarah shook her head. Can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see that Horde ship bearing down on us. We came so close to failure, Jack, if your plan hadn't worked. But it did work, Jack interrupted gently. And do you know why? Because you had the courage to take that risk. You trusted your crew, trusted me. That's what makes you a great leader, Sarah. She looked up at him, gratitude in her eyes. Thanks, Jack. I couldn't have done this without you. Without any of you. Their moment was interrupted by Kira's voice over the intercom. Captain to the bridge. We're picking up a distress signal. Sarah and Jack exchanged a look before rushing to the bridge. Report, Sarah barked as she entered. Kira's hands flew over her console. It's a civilian transport, Captain. They're under attack by... Oh no. The main view screen flickered to life, showing a familiar and terrifying sight. A Void Horde ship, smaller than the one they had destroyed but no less deadly, was bearing down on a lumbering transport vessel. How did they get this far into our territory? Jack wondered aloud. Sarah's mind raced. The Phantom was in no shape for another fight. The sensible thing would be to continue to Arcturus Station to deliver their vital intelligence. But as she watched the civilian ship desperately trying to evade the Horde vessel, she knew she couldn't abandon them. Kira, plot an intercept course, Sarah ordered, her voice steady. Grax, give me everything you can from our weapons. Jack, I need options. How can we take that thing down without getting ourselves killed in the process? The Arcturus station loomed large in the Phantom's view screen, its gleaming spires and bustling space docks a welcome sight after days of limping through space. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the center of the bridge, her posture straight despite the exhaustion that weighed heavily on her shoulders. Arcturus Control, this is UES Phantom requesting emergency docking, Lieutenant Kira called out. We have wounded aboard and critical intelligence for the Galactic Council. As they waited for a response, Jack moved to stand beside Sarah. How do you think the Council will react to our report? He asked quietly. Sarah's lips quirked in a wry smile. Honestly, I think they're going to have a hard time believing it. We've done what no one thought possible, Jack. Twice. Before Jack could respond, a voice crackled over the comm. UES Phantom, you are cleared for emergency docking at Bay 17. Medical teams are standing by. Welcome home, heroes. As the Phantom glided into the docking bay, Sarah saw a crowd gathering. News of their exploits had clearly preceded them. She squared her shoulders, knowing that the real battle, the battle for the future of the war effort, was about to begin. The next few hours passed in a blur of debriefings, medical examinations, and hurried consultations. Sarah insisted that her crew receive treatment first, while she delivered their preliminary report to the station's commanding officer, Admiral Zhen. This is remarkable, Captain Chen, the Admiral said, his weathered face a mix of disbelief and hope as he reviewed the data. If your findings are correct, this could change everything. Sarah nodded firmly. They are correct, sir. And with all due respect, we need to act on this information immediately. The Void Horde is vulnerable, and now is our chance to strike back. Admiral Zhen's eyes narrowed. You've done more than enough, Captain. You and your crew deserve rest. We'll take it from here. But Sarah stood her ground. Sir, my crew and I have first-hand experience fighting the Horde. We know their weaknesses, their tactics. You need us on the front lines. For a long moment, the Admiral was silent. Then he nodded slowly. Very well, Captain. Report to the Council chambers at 800 tomorrow. You'll present your findings and recommendations directly to them. As Sarah left the Admiral's office, she found Jack waiting for her. How'd it go? He asked. We're in, Sarah replied. But the real test comes tomorrow. How's the crew? Patched up and raring to go, Jack said with a grin. They know what's at stake. We're all behind you, Sarah. The next morning, Sarah stood before the assembled Galactic Council, her uniform crisp, and her voice steady as she laid out everything they had learned about the Void Horde. She presented the data on their biology, the weaknesses they had discovered, and most importantly, proof that they could be defeated. Members of the council, Sarah concluded, her voice ringing through the chamber, we have a unique opportunity here. The Horde believes itself invincible, but we've proven otherwise. If we act now, with decisive force, we can turn the tide of this war. A murmur ran through the assembled aliens. Ambassador Zixara, her scales shimmering with emotion, was the first to speak. What do you propose, Captain Chen, is bold. Perhaps too bold. The risk. The risk of inaction is far greater, Sarah interrupted, her eyes blazing with conviction. Every moment we hesitate, more worlds fall to the Horde. We have the knowledge, we have the technology. All we need now is the courage to use it. The vast expanse of space erupted into chaos as the united fleet of the Galactic Council clashed with the Void Horde. Thousands of ships, representing dozens of species, engaged in a battle that would determine the fate of countless worlds. At the heart of this maelstrom, the UES Phantom led a special task force on a desperate mission. Their target, the Horde's central command structure, hidden deep within enemy territory. On the Phantom's bridge, Captain Sarah Chen's voice rang out clear and steady. All ships, commence attack pattern Delta. Phantom will take point. Remember your training, trust your instincts, and watch each other's backs. Today, we fight not just for humanity, but for every sentient being in the galaxy. A chorus of affirmatives echoed through the comm as the task force plunged deeper into the fray. The Phantom, newly upgraded with technology derived from their encounters with the Horde, danced through the battlefield. Lieutenant Hira's piloting skills were pushed to their limits as she wove between enemy ships and friendly fire alike. Multiple bogeys on our 6, Jack called out from the tactical station. They're trying to box us in. Sarah's mind raced, analyzing the situation. Grax, deploy countermeasures. Kira, on my mark, I want you to cut engines and rotate 180 degrees. We're going to give them a nasty surprise. The maneuver was executed flawlessly. As the Phantom spun in space, its weapons blazing, 3 Horde ships found themselves caught in a deadly crossfire. Within moments, they were reduced to drifting debris. But the victory was short-lived. A massive Horde dreadnought loomed before them, easily dwarfing the Phantom and its escort ships. Energy tendrils lashed out, tearing through the shields of 2 allied cruisers as if they were tissue paper. Captain, Dr. Avalon's voice was tense but controlled. I'm detecting unusual energy readings from that dreadnought. It matches the signature we saw in the Horde's central nervous system, but magnified. I think this might be their command ship. Sarah's eyes narrowed. This was their chance, but the risk was enormous. All ships, focus fire on that dreadnought. We need to punch a hole in their defenses. The battle that followed was nothing short of epic. The United Fleet threw everything they had at a Horde command ship, while Sarah and her team fought desperately to keep the Phantom intact. Ships on both sides fell by the dozens, the void of space lit up by explosions and weapons fire. Just when it seemed they might be overwhelmed, a transmission cut through the chaos. It was Admiral Zhen, his voice strained but triumphant. Captain Chen, we've broken through their left flank. The path to their command ship is clear, but not for long. This is your shot. Sarah knew what had to be done. Kira, plot a course straight for that dreadnought's heart. Grax, divert all power to engines and forward shields. We're going in. The Phantom surged forward, accelerating to dangerous speeds. Enemy fire raked across their hull, but they pressed on, driven by the knowledge that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Impact in 10 seconds, Kira shouted, her hands white-knuckled on the controls. Sarah looked around at her crew, human and alien alike, seeing in their eyes the same determination that burned in her own heart. It's been an honor serving with all of you, she said softly. The Phantom struck the Horde dreadnought with devastating force, its reinforced hull tearing through layer after layer of biomechanical defenses. For a moment, it seemed as though they might be torn apart by the impact. Then, miraculously, they broke through into a vast central chamber. "We're in," Jack exclaimed, disbelief and exhilaration mingling in his voice. Sarah was already moving. "Avalon, Grax, you're with me. Jack, you have the con. Keep them off our backs while we plant the charges." The trio raced through the alien corridors of the Horde ship, fighting off bizarre biomechanical defenses at every turn. At last, they reached what could only be the central brain of the massive vessel. By all the stars, Avalon breathed, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her fear. Before them pulsed a massive organ-like structure, crackling with energy and information. "Admire it later, Doc," Grax growled, already setting up the explosive charges. "We need to blow this abomination sky high and get out of here."